Electric chair, airplane, television, jet engine, atom bomb, Sputnik, the first heart transplant, moon landing, personal computers, test tube babies, cell phones, computer viruses, World Wide Web, human holograms.
Technology moving faster and faster. Imagine what the 22nd century holds in store. What will our world be like? Impossible to know? Perhaps, but there are people creating the future today. Scientists, doctors, inventors, building tomorrow's world as we speak. Let's meet some of these futurists. And this is not science fiction. It's science fact.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Robin Robinson, your guide to the future. It is a strange and wonderful world run by technology that to us may seem like magic. But then a laptop computer would have seemed like magic 50 years ago. Today, technology is accelerating. Whether you like it or not, the future is upon us. Robots, computer chip implants, nanotechnology.
Just as I feared, the road to hell is paved with good inventions.
I see our first guest has arrived. Mr. Aldous Huxley, author of the classic novel Brave New World, here to remind us that all progress is not necessarily a step forward.
Oh, glad to be of service, Robin. Nice to be here. Well, actually, it's nice to be anywhere. Which leads me to a very pertinent question. How am I here? As memory serves, I'm dead.
As the proverbial doornail.
And our other guest, Orlando Bell.
You're so correct, poor Huxley. You died in 1963, the same day John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Your departure, for obvious reasons, barely made the papers.
Reminds me of some of my reviews.
Well, poor Huxley may be dead, Orlando, but you are pure fiction.
Fiction?
Yep, she's an astral projection. Half human, half machine. We created her to help explain what the future may be like.
In my day, there's no such thing as blindness, and almost all deadly diseases have been eradicated. All those poor people in the Civil War. I mean, if they were lucky enough to live to their mid-40s, they were plagued by toxins and boils, tumors, gallstones, festering sores, bleeding gums. Yeah, even you, Huxley, wouldn't call those the good old days.
It wasn't all bad. They had clean air and no rock and roll.
But you must admit, Orlando has a point. You'd have to give up a lot of nice modern conveniences.
Right. The automobile.
Traffic jams.
Telecommunications.
Telemarketing.
Blood-eyed.
Cyborg.
You say cyborg like it's a bad thing. You're just jealous.
Oh, really?
Yes. For not only am I visually pleasing, I'm also smart as a whip. My human brain is enhanced with a computer chip that links me to other human brains in a vast network. Just like in today's world, computers are linked together by the Internet. We call it the World Wide Mind, or WIM for short.
And actually, there are some renowned scientists who are taking this concept very seriously, like Dr. Rodolfo Linares, the chairman of the Department of Neuroscience at New York University.
We could, in fact, become much better human beings, because one thing that we lack often is the ability to put oneself in other people's shoes. We're talking about putting yourself in other people's brains, so that you understand the pain, you understand the yearning, you understand the fear. Not just are told, you understand it directly.
But suppose you couldn't speak at all, could not communicate in any way. How would you feel then? There's a doctor who's working to help a young man named Eric Ramsey, who is locked in. Eric is totally aware but cannot communicate with the outside world. In the process of helping Eric, Dr. Philip Kennedy is taking the first baby steps toward the worldwide mind.
Eric's a tremendous tragedy. I mean, he was just so unfortunate. He was a passenger.
It was November the 6th, 1999. He and a friend of his, he had just gotten off from work and they went to a movie. A lady was making a U-turn and they hit her and then they flipped over and went end to end and landed on several pine trees.
Apart from multiple injuries to multiple fractures, he also had a brainstem stroke, so that his brainstem, which is the more automatic part of the brain, is separated from his thinking brain. Locked-in syndrome is a medical term. It means that people are fully aware and intelligent. They know what's going on. They usually see and hear, but they can't express anything. Can't move, can't speak, and hence they're locked in.
We actually didn't know anything was wrong until the day following all of the surgery. They thought that he wasn't coming out of the anesthesia properly. Usually when you come out of the anesthesia, you're in a lot of pain, you ask a lot of questions. He just laid there. He had no movement at all. He didn't respond really to any questions or anything.
The main thing he wants, and that these folks want, is speech.
The intent is to give Eric a means to communicate. Right now, it's very difficult to tell what he is thinking.
He was a very good teenager. His ambition was to be a Disney artist, which hopefully if he can regain everything through this research, he can still become an artist.
He can think fine, he can see, he has some trouble seeing, but he can see, he can hear. Eric definitely is locked in. He's probably the most locked in, and I say that because his eye movements to indicate yes or no are very slow. We first of all mapped out where he had a speech area. In other words, we put him in an MRI scanner, and he was presented with images of animals, and he had to say in his head, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is an elephant. And when he was saying that, we compared that to when he was just lying there quietly. And that part of the brain that lit up when he was trying to actually say those words in his head, that's the part we implanted. Yes, he thinks the words and the brain lights up. The brain implant consists of a tiny electrode, and the electrodes are 3 or now 4 wires that come together in a tiny tip. It's only a millimeter to maybe 2 millimeters in length, and then that part is implanted in the brain. Basically, the wires just record across the tissue that grows in.
I think your mind is a very, very complicated thing. I mean, even thinking like of the color purple, if you plug my mind into your mind, how would that concept be?
We implanted him in December 2004, and we've been working with him to try to restore some useful short words to him. People like him, the speech area is intact, so in that sense it's easy. If we can just pick up the signals from it, detect the pattern of firing when he's trying to say specific sounds, speech sounds, pick up that pattern, then the computer says it out for him. Our goal with Eric is for him to produce maybe a few dozen words, and then our ultimate goal with patients would be to have at least 100 useful short words at conversational rate. And I would hope that certainly that he should be able to have enough useful speech, even if it takes us implanting better technology into him than we have today.
They actually asked us when he got out of intensive care whether we wanted to put him in a nursing home or take care of him at home, and I said, we're going to take care of him at home.
You should be able to say, Mom, I love you. Right now, if you can say, I, O, you, yes, no, ma, da. We haven't gotten to the love part yet, but he's almost there. We've been working on this implant since 1986. I've been doing 20 years of this. One of the problems was nobody believed me. So when I said, hey, this is great, this is going to work for long-term human recording eventually, it was a hard sell.
There's a number of different areas where there's struggles. One is just the technology, because it's a new technology. We're putting man-made devices in biological tissues.
I had no doubt about it at all, and that, confidence kept me going. And I knew that because I did a very simple study in rats. What I did was implant the electrode in a part of the brain that receives input from their whiskers. So the rats have these big long whiskers.
But they're all kind of firing and bubbling away with. with activity.
So what we did was we found that just a few whiskers would activate the activity in the electrode, and the other whiskers would not. And that was clear evidence. If you just tap on the whiskers, you could hear the activity. But that's when I knew that this is going to work.
Well, it's a doorway to the mind, I guess, right? It's trying to develop an understanding of how the cells in your brain control your behavior and control your movement and your speech.
This is extremely important to me. I mean, if you look at the numbers of patients like this, it's incredible. There are 30,000 ALS patients in this country alone, and they will all become locked in at some point. About 5,000 or 6,000 a year are at the decision point is, I'm going to be locked in within the next year. Am I going to go on a ventilator? I'm going to let myself die. Well, if they can communicate, then they have the choice is much easier. They can be productive. They can earn a living, pay taxes, you know. I mean, we have people calling us up all the time saying, you know, my husband, my wife has got a brainstem stroke, lying in bed, can you help? I mean, it's just, I just see it as being hugely important. I may be wrong, but that's the way I see it. I did run a marathon to try to raise money for it. It didn't raise very much. I produced lots of evidence slowly over the years, and finally it came around. And then they really funded it. They gave me permission to implant a human, 3 humans in fact. J.R. was had a brainstem stroke, just like our present patient. Johnny was a drywall contractor. He was also a great guitar player, and he was a really great character. We had these signals coming from his brain, and that part of the brain that's was once related to his hand. So we implanted his hand area. We originally said, okay, let's imagine moving our hand, maybe we get some signals. And he was able to tell us that from, first of all, thinking about moving his hand to make the cursor move, he then just thought about the cursor. So when we asked him to move the cursor, he thought cursor. He didn't think, oh, I'm going to move my hand. So that's really important, because what it means is that that part of the brain is now related to the cursor, which is like that little thing out there on the screen. So in that sense, the cursor now became an output from his brain. It was part of his brain. One day he was spelling out words, and we were asking him to spell, his name, John. So he was doing that, and he did that pretty well. And he used John, and then took a break, and we said, okay, spell it again. And instead of J, he put a P. And I said, oh, she's gone off. And then he put an H. And I said, oh, what is he doing now? And then an I and an L. So he spelled my name. Instead of spelling Johnny, he spelled my name. Just right like that, without asking him or anything. So we knew that he knew what he was doing. He could do it. So in that sense of him controlling the computer, he's really the first cyborg. Cyborg being somebody, an organism controlling a computer. Remember, the 90s was a decade of the brain, and that put a lot of funding in there. NIH funding doubled, and obviously there's a lot more work done, a lot more knowledge gained. Technology just marches on. It's, I think, very ethically justifiable to try to help folks restore speech and movement, and certainly I would say in the next 10 years, implanting devices for speech restoration should be routine. So let's go past that, if you wish, past the 10-year, 20-year time frame. You can see immediately that, you can see the limitations of our brain, or that memory is a big problem. Calculations are a big problem. And yet for a simple $10 device, calculator, just a piece of cake. So if you combine those in together and implant memory banks in the brain, in the normal brain, you can improve somebody's memory. I think that progress will be so phenomenal in the next 100 years, and that maybe everybody will routinely have enhanced brains with enhanced memory and calculation ability. The gain, I think, will be so immense that people will want it. That doesn't mean people will get it. I'm not sure that it will be commercially available, because I think it would be unfair to have several people with that sort of capability. And it would give them such a huge advantage over everybody else and make them extremely powerful. And that's the scary part.
What if Dr. Kennedy is right? What if, in the future, we are all connected via a worldwide mind? What if you could hear what other